All right. So hello, everyone, and welcome to the FY2024 Post-Award Grant Workshop for Section 5310, the Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Programs. If I haven't met you yet, I'm Jess Maffey, Transit Programs Manager at the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation, or DRPT. I oversee the 5310 Human Services Transportation Program, and I'm located at our Richmond office. Today's webinar is intended to give fiscal year 2024 5310 subrecipients an overview of the process for capital operating and other capital award management. If you did not receive an FY24 award, so this previous grant cycle, you're obviously welcome to remain in the webinar to learn more about award management. I'm joined today by Katie Miller, who is a transit programs manager for the 5311 program. She's helping moderate the webinar and will be keeping track of your questions as we go along. And I'm also joined by Mary Olivia, who is with our communications team, as well as Grant Sparks, who is the new Director of Statewide Transit Programs, who will introduce himself shortly. The first thing we want to do is just get into a couple of quick announcements. And here I'm going to have Grant Sparks introduce himself and let everyone know about his new position. Grant?
Thanks, Jess, and good morning, everyone. As Jess just mentioned, my name is Grant Sparks. I am the new Director of Statewide Transit Programs. Many of you are probably familiar with Neil Sherman. Unfortunately for all of us, after 45 years of public service, Neil retired last week. So it is my job to fill the impossible shoes that Neil has left for us to be the Director of Statewide Transit Programs. So I'm obviously still learning. I have, however, been with DRPT for 4 years. So I am familiar with some of you and still becoming more familiar with the 5310 program. But in my previous role, I was the Director of Transit Planning. And so I provided oversight over our transit grant programs and the development of those grant programs. So you can kind of see here on the screen, this is our transit team org chart. And so Jess, you can see here where she falls on the org chart. So she reports directly to me. And then my previous position was over there on the left. It is now vacant, the Director of Transit Planning. But anyway, I look forward to meeting all of you and working with all of you in the future. And just wanted to say thank you for all that you do. So just thank you and looking forward to working with you.
All right, thanks, Grant. The next quick announcement I have is that we will be transitioning to a new grant management system, which will be announced this fall. I believe the first communications are going out fairly soon, so please just be on the lookout for that. We'll have a lot more information about that, and we're not going to cover it in this webinar. All right, getting just into the workshop today, some housekeeping. Please, everyone, remain on mute during the presentation. We've given you the option here to unmute yourself because we're going to do some Q&A sessions, but we also have the capability to mute you if we hear background noise. So just make sure you've hit that mute button while I'm presenting. Breaks for questions will be available at intervals throughout the presentation and at the end. You are welcome to put questions in the chat. If you look at the top of your screen, you can see that little chat function. And you can put them in there as we go along, and we'll try to address those at the breaks. Or once we get to the break, you can use that raise hand function. If you see at the top of your screen a little hand raise, you can click that and Katie will recognize you, and then you will unmute yourself. Just so you all know, I am reading from a script and controlling the PowerPoints to make sure I can cover everything. So please just know that Katie and Mary Olivia are both out there keeping an eye on those questions if I'm not responding to you. I'm also going to ask those on the webinar who are not 2024 awardees to give preference to the awardees for asking their questions. We have a lot to go through today. You probably saw this is I've allowed 2 hours for this meeting. And I want to be sure the awardees have their time. Anyone, of course, is welcome to contact me after the presentation if you have questions. And if there are questions we can't answer due to time constraints, I will definitely be assembling them and with answers and sending them to the group. I do plan to keep us on time, so I may cut off questions if things are getting a little tight, but you can continue to put them in the chat or write them down and email them to me afterward. Additionally, as I did at the beginning, this webinar is being recorded. We will post the recording on YouTube and send the link to everyone. So if you had a power outage last night due to the storm and you get cut off, we will be sending you the recording for you to watch. This is just a list of all the reference documents that I will refer to today. Many of you received these yesterday in an email. Some of you may have not if you just registered like yesterday afternoon. Don't worry, these will be emailed out to everyone again following the presentation, along with that link to the recording. So don't worry if you don't have these with you right now. You will be emailed the slides to the presentation, and this presentation has a lot of links embedded in it. So, please don't feel the need to screenshot the slides. You'll get all these slides. Yeah, let's go. Okay, this is, again, when you receive the slide deck, you will also get a document with all the registration links to this fall's upcoming webinars. And these links are available in the slide as well. And we will also send out these registration links later this fall, when a little bit closer to these dates. So these are just all my upcoming webinars for 5310. For those of you who have applied before, you're familiar with the CHISM meetings. Just a quick note here that attending a CHISM meeting for your region is required for anyone planning to apply in FY25. So just make a note of that. And the pre-application workshop for FY25 will be on November 1st. So that's coming up. All right, to get into the agenda for today, we're going to start with an overview of the program, then go into general grant management procedures in our Olga grant management system, talk about communications assistance available to you, as well as the RTAP program. And then a section I know everyone is eager about, the performance reporting for FY24, including the requirements for all award types, as well as what you need on your website and an overview of performance metrics. We will then go into the capital award specific management, and finally the operating and other capital specific management. Just a note here, after the capital vehicle award management section, anyone who's not receiving operating or other capital, also known as mobility management, is welcome to drop off, as that will truly be the last section. I'm kind of trying to front load all the information that those folks won't need. And there will be breaks for questions after each of these sections. All right, for the program owner overview, I'm going to go through this section pretty quickly and just use it as a refresher, as you've all, in theory, applied. So the primary, the program purpose and requirements for 5310. The primary funding source for this program comes from the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA. That means DRPT is the recipient of that funding, and you all, as the subrecipient of that funding, are following the FTA's guidance and policies when administering this funding. The purpose of this funding is to improve mobility for seniors, defined by the FTA as people 65 years old or older, and individuals with disabilities, by removing the barriers to transportation and expanding available transportation options. Projects under this program must serve the eligible population, which I just defined above, and funding and/or vehicles provided through this program are only to be used for the purposes described in your application and only in the awarded areas, i.e. your service area. The FTA requires that all projects and agencies funded under this program are to coordinate with their neighbors, especially other federally funded entities such as transit agencies or government agencies, to help meet the needs of the eligible population. And we will talk about coordination a bit more in a moment. We're going to go through a review of the award types. So there are 3 different types of awards offered under the 5310 program. This is capital vehicle awards, operating, and other capital. These names I know have shifted a little bit over the years, but I've tried to standardize the names you see on this slide as much as possible in all the materials. Capital vehicle grants are for replacement or expansion vehicles for transportation of the eligible population. These grants require a 20% local match and are funded at 80% by the FTA. There are typically no state dollars attached to this grant. Operating grants are direct transportation expenses for the approved project. These funds are used to operate transportation projects that do not fall within an organization's typical day-to-day activities, but are rather an expansion of services. The FTA provides 50% of the funding for this award, and the state typically provides 40%, leaving the local match at 10% for awardees. Other capital is a name that's often used as interchangeable with mobility management, but it is not this award is not exclusively mobility management, so I'm trying to refer to it as other capital. It also encompasses contracted transportation costs, as well as any other capital purchases, which are not common in this award. For this award, FTA provides 80% of the funding, and the state puts in 16%, so awardees owe a 4% local match. None of these awards are guaranteed year after year. It's a competitive process, and the state percentage can vary based on the availability of funding. And just as a note, in-kind expenses are not eligible as local match. Okay, so for the 5310 program, I wanted to talk a little bit about coordination. As I mentioned, the FTA expects all 5310 providers to coordinate with other similar programs and transit agencies to make the most of federal dollars. We at DRPT expect community level collaboration and coordination of services to reduce any duplication of services and make sure all of our partners who need or provide transportation services in an area are at least aware of each other and what they're offering. The FTA requires that DRPT publish the Coordinated Human Services Mobility Plan, or CHISM plan, to assess human services transportation throughout the state, determine gaps in services, and recommend coordination strategies to fill those gaps. This is a high-level document that really has the most value for you all in the regional breakdowns. As such, we hold 6 regional coordination meetings each year to bring all the agencies in each region together to go over the plan and connect them to each other. Attending a CHISM meeting is required for your agency to apply for the next year's grant cycle. Those meetings, as you saw on my previous slide, are scheduled for this year in mid-October. Additionally, the CHISM plan itself is updated every 3 years and overhauled every 6 years. So as some of you may recall, we have recently completed the 2022 update, and we will be releasing the updated plan by early October. And I want to thank everyone who has contributed any feedback to that process. The next plan overhaul will be in 2025 and will be much more comprehensive. Now I want to get into some grant management. I'm going to touch on your and my most important document, as well as the general functions in OLGA you need to be aware of. So here is what the 5310 guidebook currently looks like. You'll see on the title page that it was last updated in December of 2022. I will be updating the guidance this fall, and it will be published by the time the grant opens on December 1st. I just highlighted here on the second image there the relevant section for awardees. So you already did the application section, and now you're onto the grant management procedures section. There you will find detailed descriptions of everything we go through here and more, including Olga tutorials that take you step by step. It also covers compliance reviews, which we are not covering at length in this webinar. I will continue to refer this document as the guidebook, and I urge you to reference it. I'm always happy to answer questions, but often you can find something yourself by doing that Control F function and searching in the document and using your keywords. That is something I do all the time. Just so you know, this guidebook will be sent out to you with this presentation and all those other reference documents. But while I'm sending it to you, I also want to show you a place that you can always find the updated guidebook if it gets lost in one of your folders. You're just going to want to go to drpt.virginia.gov, click on the Grant Programs dropdown, and go to the Human Services Grant Program. If you scroll to the very bottom of the page, you'll see it there under Application Resources, along with the most up-to-date CHISM plan. Those are always going to be there for your reference. Okay, getting into Olga. Olga is DRPT's grant management system through which most major grant functions happen. You should all be somewhat familiar with the system since it's what you use to submit an application. You will need to use it to manage your grant as well, which includes signing contracts and submitting reimbursement requests. I would recommend bookmarking the homepage, and I have the URL highlighted there at the top. I'm going to briefly touch on a few key functions in Olga as well as tasks that need to be completed as awardees and that your grant administrator needs to be aware of. Okay, so for Olga users, every Olga account must have a master user. When making a change to the master user, a new Olga contract must be signed. The master user needs to be a current employee of your organization. If you log in and go to the main menu, which I've including an image here, and then the grantee information tab, and you click under employee user management, master users can go in there and add or update your users. So for all master users, please go into Olga and make sure that your contacts are updated, your staff members, and that you deactivate those who are no longer with your organization. Just go through, review all the users, and make sure that you also at least have at least one additional user in the system for backup. If you only have one person in Olga who is the master user, and that person leaves, your organization will not have access to your account until a new master user is set up. So we just want to make sure that you have at least one other person who can get in there if anything happens. And also want to note that no user is permitted to use another's login credentials. So everyone should have their own separate login. Okay, staying under that grantee information tab, master users, as another task, please go into the contact information link there and ensure that your organization's contact information is up to date. This is also where you will assign which users get notified about different functions in the system. If you've had issues with receiving system notifications from Olga, such as, if I've rejected or suspended a reimbursement request, your CFO, for example, might want to receive notifications about that. And this is where you can go in and change that function. Okay, the FTA certifications and insurances. The final task here is that every agency awarded funding will need to pin the FTA certifications and assurances in Olga. Basically, you can see in this screenshot under grant applications, it's actually kind of small for me, but there's a little highlighted section there where you'll go into your application, and then the second image there is once you've clicked into that page, you'll see at the very top FTA certifications and assurances that I've highlighted. You will want to pin this, and it will be signed by your master user. Your master user may not necessarily be the agency executive. For us, that's enough, but if you need it signed internally by an executive, you can print out those certs and assurances and have it signed and send it back to us to keep on file. But regardless, the master user has to be the one to pin it, and their name will appear there. This is not ideal, but it is how the system functions currently. And if you need support with Olga that's beyond my scope of understanding, you can reach out to Steven with our IT department. His email's right there, but you can always reach out to me as well, and we can talk through things. All right, for awardees, I'd like to talk about how our communications department can assist you. Our communications team primary purpose is to help tell the story of what you, our partners, do in the Commonwealth to improve people's lives through transportation. The comms team is led by Andy Wright, our Chief of External Affairs, and a team of marketing specialists. They are eager to help in any way they can, whether that be with assisting, drafting press releases, or issuing joint releases. They can also help with creating social media content or sharing posts, planning public events, and collecting or producing photography. I know Human Services in particular has a lot of important stories to share, and I'm hoping that in the next year we'll be able to connect with some of you about gathering some of those stories for DRPT social media that we can co-promote online. This image here is one of the posts from DRPT's Instagram account with their Discover Transit campaign, and they can work with you to create similar imagery for your organization. If you would like to, ask for help from our communications team, you can reach out to the DRPT PR email, or you're welcome to send me a note and I can put you in touch with the right people. You can also use this general PR email to request being added to any of our listservs. So just so you know. Okay, I want to briefly touch on RTAP. We're not going to go over this at length, but just want to make you aware that scholarships are available for the Rural Transit Assistance Program, or RTAP, to assist rural and specialized transit operations to further the development of management skills and encouragement professional networking by attending transit training, seminars, workshops, and conferences. This is an application process that's submitted through Olga. We ask that you submit the application at least 30 days before the event or training so we can make sure it gets processed properly, or we can ask you follow-up questions about it. And again, this is for rural agencies, but we do have some limited exceptions for agencies in other areas. Some of you might recall for the CTAB meeting that you received some RTAP scholarship funding, and that's because we all, we want you all to be able to attend that conference. So I'm not going to cover that application at length here, but if you want more information, I'm happy to send you our guidance on that. Okay, I'm going to pause here for questions. And again, raise your hand to ask a question, and Katie Miller will call on you. And I know Katie's also monitoring the chat.
Yeah, Ray Parks, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, ask your question.
Hi, good morning, Jess.
Hi.
Just wanted to, I think I missed a part of the statement. You were talking about signing and pinning for the certifications and assurances.
Yeah.
Could you repeat that? You said it should be the master user, but if we need to, and I missed what you said right after that.
That's okay. Yeah, I know I'm going through this pretty quickly. So I wanted to note that the certs and assurances, I brought this up because someone had an issue with, they wanted their agency executive to be the one to sign it. But the way the Olga system works, it only allows your master user to pin and sign it. So the master user may not be the same as your agency executive.
Right.
So if you need that executive signature on it, for your own internal processes, I would just recommend you print that out, have them sign it, and then you can send it to me so we have that on file. Does that make sense?
Yes, got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, and then Jane Lloyd.
Yeah, along the same line, so you're saying for DRPT purposes, we don't have to have signing authority within our agency to pin and sign those, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. If there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Thank you for those questions. Okay. All right. Slides. All right, so in this section, we're going to talk about requirements for all award types, including what you need on your website and how the performance metrics reporting works. So section is going to take some time, and there will be a break at the end for questions. So let's get started. All agencies that receive 5310 funding should have some mention of transportation services on their website. This does not mean you have to state that it's open to the public for use, as we know that many of you don't necessarily offer public transportation. However, you should have some mention that transportation services are available. Another very important requirement is having your Title VI and ADA materials posted on your website in an easy to find place. This is important because it is an FT requirement that is part of their compliance checks, therefore part of our compliance checks. You must have all the notices and forms listed here posted on your website. I want to particularly point out the Title VI plan. This is a formal document that is signed by your authorizing official and board. If you have any questions about these documents, please let me know. There's also additional guidance and examples in that guidebook. We check sites annually for compliance and issue guidance based on what we find. These checks happen typically without your awareness, and you'll only be notified if something is out of compliance, and then you'll have 30 days to rectify that. I also wanted to note that the Title VI and ADA notices must also be posted in common areas and available in the 5310 vehicles if you have them. We have to ensure that people know what to do and where to go if they feel they're being discriminated against. So I urge you to put these into place if you have not already. And I will talk about that a little bit more in future slides. Okay, now we're going to get into reporting on our project performance. This will include talking about ridership reporting in Olga, the new performance metrics requirements, and the FY2024 quarterly report and guidance. Okay, so all projects that provide transportation are required to report their ridership in Olga each month. This is your unlinked passenger trips, which can be measured by counting each time a passenger boards a vehicle. I have an example here of two people boarding a vehicle and riding to the grocery store. After shopping, they board the vehicle again and are taken home. This is for unlinked. A passenger is defined as, again, the eligible population or a senior or individual with disabilities. You should be maintaining trip logs with this information. You don't have to submit your trip logs with your numbers in Olga, but you should have it available. The data is due by the end of each month for the preceding month. You report it by going into the Performance Data tab under the main menu in Olga, hitting that Transit button, and then following the prompts. You can't see it here, but when you go through the steps of reporting, you will choose human service transportation as the type of data you're reporting. This reporting will be repetitive with the quarterly report, which we're about to talk about. The only difference is this is reported monthly, and the quarterly report should be able to add up the previous 4 months data to equal what you put in as ridership in your quarterly report. The reason we require this monthly data in Olga specifically is because this is what reports out to the Transportation Board or CT. We're not purposely try to make your lives harder. It just has a different function for us as an agency. Okay, now we're going to talk about the quarterly report. For those who have had operating and mobility management grants in the past, you may recognize this spreadsheet. As of this year's grant cycle, we are no longer using this spreadsheet, hence the big red X. You can see it has multiple tabs along the bottom with different to our new setup. For your FY2024 projects, you will receive the spreadsheet I just as a template with pre-filled in metrics. This is a change from previous years. In previous years, if you had a operating or other capital / mobility management grant, you created your own metrics. To be clear, this spreadsheet I'm providing you will not be a fillable form in Olga. It is just a spreadsheet that you will keep and fill in every quarter, which I'll talk about more in a minute. As I mentioned in the last slide, there are tabs along the bottom. I'll go back here. That I see some audio is breaking up. Okay. Let me know if you guys can't hear me.
Hey, Jess, this is Grant. You might want to turn off your camera just for bandwidth purposes.
Okay.
If it's that.
Can everyone hear me? Or is this any better?
I think so.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, thank you. All right, getting back to the spreadsheet. Let me get back to my notes. Let's see. Okay, so there's a tabs along the bottom that are each work plan. There are 2 new work plans indicated with the stars here. This is the all projects work plan and the capital vehicle work plan. I want to pause here and mention that I know previous year's reports, that first spreadsheet I showed you was referred to as a work plan. I am referring to the entire spreadsheet I showed you with each work plan included as the quarterly report. I hope this is clear, but please let me know if you have questions. So now we have 4 work plans as part of your quarterly report. The requirements are that every project has to fill out the all projects work. You will then fill out a work plan for each type of award you received, including vehicles. Vehicle awardees used to not have to do anything with quarterly reports, but now you do. To give an example of a full set of reporting requirements, a recipient that only received vehicles for this award will be filling out the all projects work plan and the capital vehicles work plan and submitting that as their quarterly report along with the monthly ridership reporting in Olga. And just to note, the sheet is starting with FY2024 awards only. You don't need to go back and redo anything or submit any quarterly report for any prior year awards. So we're just starting with this. You guys are the lucky group that gets to start with this new system. Submitting the quarterly report. As the name suggests, this report is due quarterly to me, either via email or as an attachment in Olga with that month's reimbursement request. The months the report are due are January, April, July, and October. January being the first time you'll submit the report, and October being the last time you'll submit it. The start date for all awards is October 1st, 2024. However, awardees who receive vehicles are well aware that you may not receive your FY2024 vehicle for up to a year. At this time, I would like vehicle recipients to still fill in and submit this report for 2024 or 2023-2024. You're going to be submitting fleet level data that is not specific to a single vehicle. I don't think we have any first time vehicle grantees this year, so all of you have some 5310 funding in your fleet. Since we don't know exactly when vehicles will be delivered, I would rather you be reporting as you go along than try to start up a report in the middle of the year. So you'll start reporting on your whole fleet's activities starting this October. Now I'm going to talk a bit about a guidance document that accompanies the quarterly report, as well as some details about the metrics and specific questions I've had from some of you. I know some of you have seen this guidance document. I sent it to many of you to review. So hopefully this is not totally unfamiliar to all of you. Basically, I've created a document called Quarterly Report Guidance that lists every metric in the work plans, as well as additional instructions for how to complete the metrics and the requirement status of the metrics. The requirement status is also in each work plan, so you can see it easily in there when you're going through. The main thing that the guidance document provides are those extra instructions for what each metric is asking for. So I'm not going to go through every single metric in this webinar because, again, we have a lot of other things to get through today, but I do ask you to review it and reference it when you're filling out your metrics. The image on the left there shows the all projects work plan guidance from the document. As you can see, the first metric is ridership, which is required for all projects. The next three are optional, but with exceptions specifically for operating. These optional ones are still included for everyone, just in case, you know, a vehicle or mobility management program wants to keep track of those and report on them. Specifically, doing an annual survey is something we recommend, but again, it's not a requirement for all project types. I also wanted to point out the metric there at the bottom, capture unique needs and success information, as I've had several questions from you all about that metric. This metric is only required for operating projects. I just want to make a note of that as first. It is a narrative style metric, and you'll see if you look in the spreadsheet that it's just a box that you can type notes into. What you report on is your choice. This is meant to be a metric that reflects your observations about your program, your community needs, or any challenges that arise during the grant period, just to give us some more context about what's going on with your project throughout the year. An example could be that some of your vehicle fleet's catalytic converters were stolen, and that set you back in service delivery, or maybe you had to borrow vehicles or incurred extra expenses. Another example could be that a new retirement community opened up in your service area and your agency is looking into their needs. It doesn't have to be anything extraordinary. It's really just so we at DRPT can see some additional context about your program. Okay, a few more notes about the new quarterly reports, and I'm just gonna pretty much read from the slide here. Your performance metrics may not look exactly the same as what you submitted with your application, you know, between December and February of this past year. And that's okay. I know that you already submitted that and have some metrics filled out, but that was, when you filled that out, there wasn't a ton of guidance around the spreadsheet. So I'm asking you to please use the new template I've provided in your reporting, and you can copy over what you already submitted, or you can put in new projections. Either way, you just need to adhere to this new guidance. All that being said, if you have questions while you put together your new quarterly report, please reach out to me. You can email me it to review, or we can chat about it if you have questions. I know there's going to be a lot of questions about this process, and that's okay. A couple more notes. Again, the eligible population for 5310 is always defined as people with disabilities and people 65 years old or older. So that's what you should be reporting on. And just to reiterate, when reporting transportation activities such as ridership and number of passengers, this is specifically for my vehicles out there, please report on the numbers for your entire program, which includes 5310 vehicles, or in other words, your fleet used for the program, not a specific vehicle. Okay, this slide is more for when you receive these slides. These each have links to the guidance and the quarterly report template. They will also be sent as attachments, so you're gonna get them in a bunch of different ways. So I will pause here for questions. All right. I'm shocked, but we can continue on, and I'm sure I'll be in touch. Oh, there we go.
Yep, Pam Miller, do you want to go ahead and unmute and ask your question?
Okay, so when you said the entire fleet, did you
Mhm.
mean entire fleet of only 5310 vehicles or entire fleet of vehicles that we are using for people with disabilities?
The entire fleet you're using for, in your case, people with disabilities.
Okay.
So it really, the way I've been thinking about it is if you had an operating grant and you were reporting on your performance for your program, you wouldn't be singling out specific people, for example, that you
Right,
have
right.
salaries for to report on their performance. So it really is about your program operations and not a specific vehicle doing a specific task, if that makes
Perfect.
sense.
That
Okay.
does, because you're capturing the whole need for people
Right.
with disabilities.
Exactly.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mhm. All right. I'm going to move on, but after you all review everything we send you, again, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to go through everything. Okay. Now we're going to go into capital vehicle awards management. In this section, we're going to cover the vehicle award process and delivery, project agreements or contracts, required documentation, asset management through our Trans Am system, and title requests. You may have noticed I have a little stars next to a couple things there, required documentation, asset management, because these are two topic areas that are of particular importance for compliance. I'm going to go somewhat quickly through this section as I believe everyone here has received vehicles. I know some folks have received them pretty recently because of our large FY21 through 23 order. But there will be another break for questions afterward if I miss anything here. Okay, vehicle orders are based on the type of vehicle identified in the application. Our requirements are that these vehicles must be used to transport the eligible population. The types of vehicles are what we call BOC or body on chassis, raised roof van, and modified minivan. The useful life of all vehicles is defined as 4 years and 100,000 miles. This will become important when you want to dispose of or replace the vehicle, which we will talk more about. To order the vehicles, we provided a list of all your vehicles from your applications that were awarded to Sunny Merriman, our vehicle vendor. They then get in touch with you about customizing the vehicles with any specific needs. This might include additional wheelchair placements or different seating arrangements. Some of you met with Chad Seals during the CTAB conference to go over those orders. The award amount for your vehicles is fixed. This means that if you add on any additional features as part of your customization, you will be billed for that separately if it's above the award amount. Just something to keep in mind while you're considering your options. This means you would owe local match plus whatever extras you choose over that total award amount. That will be billed, just to be clear, directly by Sunny Merriman for any of those extras over the award amount. Speaking of local match, DRPT will collect local match based on the amount awarded, not the actual price. This is differentiated because, as you all may remember, there have been a lot of increases in vehicle prices over the last few years, and we cannot necessarily rely on that actual price. So we do it by the amount we awarded to you. DRPT will begin requesting local match after the contracts are finalized, and we will not put in the order until all local match is collected. So it's important to submit that to us ASAP once we notify you that it's due, as delays in the ordering process or delays in collecting local match and doing the order will just delay deliveries further. Here I have a vehicle timeline with the associated action steps and responsible groups. So at the beginning of the process, after you're awarded, the grantee, you and Sunny Merriman customize the vehicle order. That's happening around nowish. DRPT, then once we have all those finalized orders, we place the orders with Sunny Merriman, and we place a purchase order in the EVA system. That should be happening around late fall, winter of this year. Sunny Merriman, after a very variable amount of time, will deliver the vehicles along with your inspection sheet and a DMV tax check if applicable. The grantee, you, upon delivery of the vehicle, will complete the vehicle inspection sheet and enter the vehicle into Trans Am. The timeline is really, it says variable 2024, but again, I think, as you all know, that timeline over the last few years has been very long, and we are hoping that it will go back to more of a normal pace of delivery. Okay, project contracts, those come in through Olga, and those should be coming in the next month or two. This is a process that's administered through our finance team, and I'll be communicating with them about when those are, getting ready. DRPT will collect local match based on the award amount, as I said before. Vehicles that are replacements will be identified in the contract agreement with the VINs to be replaced listed. If you need to replace a different vehicle than what was awarded, please send me a request by email so we can make sure that's in the contract. I would do that as soon as possible at this point, as we are preparing those contracts now. Vehicles that are replaced should be removed from service and either disposed of or used as a backup or spare. These vehicles are not going to be eligible for future replacements. Once your agreement is up in Olga, review it closely for accuracy before approving and contact me if there's any issues. Please review the funding source and amount, the start and end dates, and particularly the VINs if you have a replacement. The person signing in Olga must have the agency authorization to do so. So this is a little different than what we talked about with the certifications. If the person signing is not the CEO or director, DRPT requires a letter authorizing someone else to sign. Okay, I say at the top to be determined here because we may or may not issue contract amendments. So project contract amendments, several of you have experienced those over the last few years if you applied, so it shouldn't be too unfamiliar, but the process is similar to contracts. Contract amendments will happen if the actual vehicle cost exceeds the award amount. In that case, we'll issue the amendment to be reviewed and signed through Olga. So again, as you guys know, we've been dealing with a lot of price increases, and when that happens, we have to issue an amendment so that we capture that correct price. If the price is somehow lower than the award amount, the original agreement will stand and no amendment will be issued and a refund check will be provided. So far, that has not been the trajectory, but just want to note it there. If or when an amendment is up in Olga, you'll receive a notification, you'll review it closely for accuracy before approving it, and again, contact me if there's any issues. Review it for the funding amount, the source, and the process for paying any additional local match. It could be to DRPT or to the vendor. As with the contract agreements, the person signing the amendments in Olga must have the authorization to do so. And again, if it's not the CEO or director, we will require that letter authorizing someone else to sign. So it becomes very similar to the contracts if we do a contract amendment. Okay, here's a starred section for you. This, I'm going back to Title VI and ADA. This means it's important for your compliance reviews. Title VI refers to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which protects people from discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in programs or activities that receive federal financial assistance. That is you. Every agency must have an approved and up-to-date Title VI plan in place. New programs and existing programs with an expired plan will be contacted to develop and or update a compliant Title VI plan. Your Title VI requirements include the plan, a notice, a complaint process, and a complaint form. This is what was on that slide, that previous slide. Title VI is accompanied by ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act. This protects people with disabilities from discrimination. It also involves, well, there's no plan, but there is a notice, a complaint process, and a complaint form. In addition, the Title VI notice and ADA notice with reasonable modification statement must be posted in common areas in each subrecipient agency, including in entry areas, conference and meeting rooms, notice boards, and in vehicles if you are a vehicle awardee. We recommend you keep a binder containing all your Title VI and ADA information in the vehicle, including those complaint forms. Some of you, I reviewed your websites for compliance this past summer, and we've had some conversations about that. But if you need any assistance with your Title VI plan or getting into any of these documents together, please let me know. We have some people on staff who can help you. There's also examples of these in the guidebook. Okay, another very important piece for compliance. We look closely at your preventative maintenance documentation during compliance reviews. Every agency must have a written preventative maintenance plan. This includes policies and procedures for vehicle maintenance, a maintenance schedule including oil change intervals, which I'll talk about in a second, and documentation of those oil changes. The plan must also identify a single mileage interval for oil changes, such as every 5,000 miles, and we do not accept ranges. The preventative maintenance documentation also should include a pre-trip inspection policy and log. This image is a sample of a pre-trip inspection log. This is also available in the guidance for your reference. This is just what we recommend, but you may have a different form. But you just need to make sure you're conducting those logs and have that in your documentation. I just wanted to show you quickly what our compliance officers are looking for with that preventative maintenance check. You can see here for the oil changes in the upper left-hand corner, it says oil change every 3,000 miles. So the agency set the interval at 3,000 miles, and going through here, the compliance officer looked at the dates and mileage, and it looks like they met the interval 88% of the time. To be in compliance, you have to meet the interval at least 80% of the time. So this fake agency is doing well with their oil changes. Okay, going into inspection reports and vehicle issues. On the right here is what the first page of the inspection report looks like. Again, a lot of you were on this last big order that we placed and have recently filled these out for me, and thank you for that. All the 5310 vehicles are delivered with an inspection report. You are required to complete the report and send it to me within 2 days of delivery. That is really just so, we're not seeing an issue a week later or a month later if you weren't using the vehicle yet. We're seeing it right away so we can get right back to Sunny Merriman with that issue. If an issue occurs, please contact me and we will get in touch with Sunny Merriman. Examples of any issues include mechanical, electrical, or other failures, lift failures, and anything that impacts the safety, comfort, or operation of the vehicle. Issues outside of that inspection period can be reported at any time, including when a vehicle is outside the warranty period. That warranty period is 1 year. So you can always reach out to me if you're having an issue with the vehicle. Okay, asset management through Trans Am. Again, you see the star there. That is because it is important to use this system to be in compliance. And this is another, I don't have the URL here, but This is another one I suggest you bookmark the login page for. Trans Am is the required inventory system for all 5310 funded vehicles. You are not allowed to use Trans Am for any of your other fleet vehicles. We only want to see the 5310 vehicles in this inventory system. If your organization has been awarded vehicles previously, you have an account. You may not know if you're the user, but there is an account for you. If you need a new user added, and you have a manager that you know of in there, the manager can add them. If you need a new manager, please contact me. You will enter new vehicles into Trans Am within 5 days of delivery. And then you will continue to update Trans Am as you have things happen with your vehicle. So when I say that, so in Trans Am, which I will have a training for that on this coming Monday, you'll be able to update things like the service status, the condition of the vehicles, and the mileage of the vehicles. We require that you update Trans Am at least twice per year. This will be by January 15th and July 15th. And I will send out reminders when those dates are coming up. You can certainly go in there, on your own schedule and update things as you go along. It's really for you to use, beyond that requirement as much as you want. And there are a lot of functions in there that can be helpful for tracking that inventory. As I stated, on Monday the 11th, I'll be doing a 1-hour Trans Am training that I know several people have already registered for. And I'll go over, more of those action items in detail during that training. Okay, title requests and lien release process. This slide will become most important to you when your vehicle reaches the end of its useful life and you are considering disposing of it. As I stated before, the useful life of all vehicles is 4 years and 100,000 miles. The vehicle title has a lien held by DRPT. Here on the right, you can see an example of a vehicle title that I've actually signed a lien release for. So this title was released to this agency. If you want to dispose of your vehicle after it's reached the end of its useful life, you will submit a request for disposal to me via email. So you'll email me with the vehicle information, including the year and the mileage, so I can see if it's reached the end of its useful life, and then I'll either approve or reject it. Approved vehicles can be sold, donated, or otherwise disposed of. They can also be retained for minimal backup use. If we release a title to you and you retain that vehicle, you cannot use that vehicle for a purpose other than what serving the eligible population. So you can't turn it into like a staff vehicle or something like that. It still has to serve the purpose if you keep it on retainer. Once I release the title to you, you will go to the DMV to obtain a clear title. That means you'll get a new title with the lien removed. This is not the case for vehicles 2021 and on. Those are actually an electronic titling system. But I'll let you know if you have a vehicle 2021 or newer, I'll let you know how that process works. Most people are not asking for vehicle disposal for 2021 and on vehicles. But yeah, once you obtain a clear title, if you've sold or donated the vehicle, the new owner will need to retitle that vehicle. So the really important thing here is to make sure you obtain a clear title with no lien on it from DRPT. If you have totaled your vehicle, we'll follow a similar process, but you definitely need to contact me as there are some different options for totaled vehicles that involve the use of insurance proceeds. Okay. Also just wanted to make a note here that if you're considering disposing of a vehicle and it has reached the end of its useful life, instead of disposing of it, you can use it instead as a replacement vehicle for your next application. Replacement vehicles are a higher priority than expansion in our applications, so it may be useful to hang on to some vehicles if they need to be replaced. Just let me know if you have any questions about that. Okay, there's another important part of the title request and lien release process, which is the return of proceeds. So if you are disposing of your vehicle through a sale, as in you're receiving money for that vehicle, you will follow the same process we just went through of notifying me and receiving approval for a title release, but there's an additional component mandated by the FTA. So if the vehicle being sold, if it's being sold for over $5,000, you must return a portion of the proceeds of the sale to the FTA. Subrecipients may retain the proceeds up. So subrecipients may retain the proceeds of up to $5,000 plus the local share percentage of any proceeds above $5,000. So the example here is if you sell a vehicle for $7,000, you will retain $5,000. And then as part of our usual percentages, there would be an 80% federal share and a 20% local share. So that $2,000 above the $5,000, you would only retain 20% of that $2,000. So if that's the case, if you're selling your vehicle for over $5,000, I will provide you this form that you see on the right, as well as some guidance explaining everything. And you'll return that to me, and it will go through our internal financial process, and we'll let you know how much you owe, and we will return that to the FTA. Okay. Now we have some time for some questions, and I did just want to note here, if you have only received a vehicle, you can feel free to sign off, as the next section we're really just going through operating and other capital grants.
Yeah, so we did have some questions in the chat. The first one is from Pam Miller about what do we need to look at to make sure we're getting a tax check? Is it a document from Sunny Marion? Also, is there a specific place you prefer to have the sign? They found that where they were placing the signs in the vehicle might have had damage to the inside of the vehicle. And Pam,
Okay.
if you want to unmute to explain more, you are welcome to.
I'll go ahead and answer this. What do we need to look at to make sure we're getting the tax check? Is that a document from Sunny Merriman? So that would come from Sunny Merriman when they deliver the vehicle. I haven't been there when they've delivered a vehicle, but I assume it would literally just be a check that they hand you along with the inspection sheet and any other documentation with your vehicle. That will only come if you are, so there's a DMV tax, and I've had some discussions with some of you about this, but as part of the application process, you would have noted whether or not you are DMV tax exempt. So if you're DMV tax exempt, then you would receive that check along with your vehicle. In terms of the Title VI and ADA notices, inside the vehicle, I mean, I would say if it's difficult for it to be posted, just make sure you have it like in a binder inside your vehicle that's available for everyone. So, I know like in a minivan, it might be hard to have something up on a wall. So just make sure that it's inside your vehicle where it's available. So, sorry, I'm reading the chat right now. I'm just going to move forward with some of these questions. Karen, you asked, I have 2 vehicles that are 9 years old and have not yet met 100,000 miles. Will DRPT consider releasing the lien? We will consider it. I just ask that you reach out to me and let me know. I know in the past we have released in mass titles of vehicles that are 10 years old or older. That's just because, you know, that's a pretty significant amount of time. So definitely, but just, you know, reach out to me and we can just talk about it. But yes, we would consider that. Okay, is there any other questions?
Clark Thomas, going to unmute and ask a question.
Yeah, hello, Jess. Clark Thomas from
Hi.
Red Pack Area CSB. I want to try to get myself clear here on the reporting of vehicles monthly and reporting vehicles quarterly in performance metrics.
Okay.
I believe you stated that we are reporting monthly for all of our fleet, 5310 vehicles and non-5310 vehicles.
Yeah, so
Along,
this, go ahead.
because I've been currently reporting only 5310 vehicles. We have a huge fleet here.
Yeah.
And not
So
all are 5310.
okay. So basically, what we want to see is that you're reporting out ridership for the program that we're contributing to. So
Okay, so let me break it down.
Yeah.
And I have a
Yeah.
I have a residential program
right.
that has 5310 and non-5310.
Yep.
So I would report that entire program, correct?
Yes.
And I have a day support program, same thing.
Yep.
Then I have other programs that if I don't have a 5310 vehicle located in it, you don't care about that program.
Correct.
Okay. And that will be, so for me, that is going to be a change because we've been doing
Okay.
5310 vehicles monthly only. And now we'll start, obviously, I'll begin with the quarterly metrics program in October.
Okay.
Am I reading that correct or hearing that correctly?
Yeah. So the monthly reporting is in Olga, the ridership reporting, which you've been doing as a vehicle recipient. And then, yes, capital vehicles will now be reporting a quarterly report, which also covers ridership as well as a couple of other metrics, such as like lift count.
Yes.
And that's available in that spreadsheet.
And that will be for programs, all vehicles where there's a 5310.
Yes. So I would specify that, I mean, if there's a 5310 in your program, that means you've applied for it in the past for that program. So yes.
All right. So what I will be doing, basically my 2 major programs where I have 5310 vehicles, I will be reporting both monthly and performance metrics for the entire fleet of those programs.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
So that'll be a bit of an increase because I've
fine.
been doing. And then one last one.
Yes.
You stated, and Trans Am only 5310 vehicles.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time.
No worries. And yeah, Karen, I'm seeing that's a change from the past. Yeah, that's okay. And then Kathy, I'm seeing if we only receive 53 in capital and not any funding for operated. Okay. Maybe Okay, I'm going to try and answer these questions in the chat real quick. If we only receive 5310 capital and not any funding for operating, we only report on 5310 vehicle trips in Olga only. No, Kathy. If you only receive 5310 capital, you are now reporting both ridership in Olga, which has always been the case, and you are now also submitting a quarterly report, which includes a few additional metrics that are in the all projects work plan and the capital vehicle work plan. And then Melissa, what if we have a route that is not covered by 5310 operating or capital? Do we report on that? That's an interesting question. Melissa, maybe we should talk about that. I would say our guidance is that this is to clarify, this is not a 5310 vehicle. Yeah, I would not report on that then. We really, the project is meant to be, you know, within your service area. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay. Again, vehicle recipients, if you only receive vehicles, feel free to sign off now and you know, reach out to me if you have any other questions. But I am going to go ahead and move on to the operating and other capital section. Okay, so as I sort of alluded to before, we've got operating awards and we have other capital. And other capital is defined as mobility management, contracted transportation, and other purchase capital. So I'm trying to consistently use other capital to, you know, describe all these programs, but I know a lot of people use that with mobility management interchangeably, and that's okay. In this section, we're going to cover project agreements, reimbursement requests, changes and extensions, and the project closeout and planning ahead. For the project agreements, agreements or contracts will be written and made available in the coming months through Olga. Again, these are administered through our finance team. The agreements will include the approved line item budget and performance metrics as an appendix. Please be sure to review this appendix and look at your line item budget as it may have changed from your application. Once your agreement is up in Olga, review it closely for accuracy before approving and contact me if there are any issues. Please check the funding amount and the source, the start and end dates, your line item budget, and the performance metrics. When you see the performance metrics in your appendices, you'll see that it is going to just be a copy of exactly what you see in that quarterly report guidance document. So it will have the required and the optional, and you know, you'll need to look at your program, what type of awards you have, and figure out, you know, what's required for you and what's optional for you. But it will basically, it'll all be listed right there, exactly what's in that guidance document. The person signing in Olga must have the agency authorization to do so. Again, if this person is not the CEO or director, DRPT requires a letter authorizing someone else to sign. Or reimbursement requests. 5310 operating and other capital grants are reimbursement grants. Your expenses that you ask for reimbursement for must be eligible. That means it is approved in the grant, which you'll see in your, you know, appendix on your contract, and it's eligible under state and federal guidelines. If you have questions about what's eligible under state and federal guidelines, there's a list of ineligible expenses in the grant management guidance. When you submit a reimbursement request, we're asking you to submit attachments along with that request. This includes the budget summary spreadsheet, which is an Excel file that I'll show you on the next page, and that you submitted as part of your application. A general ledger report, timesheets for any position supported by the grant, receipts or paid invoices for any incurred expenses. If you have marketing funds and have expended that on marketing materials, we ask for images of any materials because there are some limits on what you can use those marketing funds for. If you have operating funding, we ask for trip sheets with origin, destination, and date of trip. And as the quarterly report is due, you can submit that as an Excel file for each of those 4 months. What we're looking for and what our finance team is looking for is that all of your summaries, backup, and requested amounts are matching. So just make sure when you're submitting backup or ledger, it's lining up with that budget summary, your line item budget, as well as your the request itself coming through Olga. And I just wanted to show you real quick here in Olga, when you go to the main menu, you'll go under that grant management tab and you'll click on reimbursement requests, and that's how you'll submit a request. I do ask that you submit reimbursement requests monthly. I would prefer you not submit them quarterly or in large groups. It's harder for us to manage those and process those in a timely manner. But if you do, if something happens and you need to put a couple together, you can always just shoot me an email and let me know, like, hey, we had a delay on an invoice, and we're just going to group these two together. That's totally fine. I just appreciate being aware of what's going on. So, but please do try to submit those monthly. So here is the budget summary or reimbursement request template. So this is actually, you submitted a project budget, which had your line item requests, but you will receive this reimbursement request template, which is a little bit different. This reimbursement request template will have tabs along the bottom showing each month, as well as a total budget tab shown here on the first tab. If you enter your line items into that total budget tab, it will pre-populate all those other monthly tabs into each one along the bottom so that you can just follow along with exactly what you put in from your award here. A couple notes on this budget summary. I would like everyone to separate each salary position and fringe into its own row. So some people put 9 drivers into one row. I would prefer to see driver 1, driver 2, driver 3, and each of those separated out, even if you didn't submit it that way in your application, just because it's a little bit harder for us to figure out how the backup documentation ties to that big chunk. So the other thing I wanted to note is that if you look along the top, these columns, please make sure you're aligning the column with the type of requests it is. So if you have, driver 1 salary in your first line, and then the salary number under that column, salaries, and then the next line should be driver 1 fringe if you're giving fringe benefits, and then that number should fall under that fringe benefits column line. And this will just make sure that everything is adding up correctly in that worksheet, and we're able to track everything against what you submit with your backup. Okay, so project scope and budget changes. Approved line item budgets and performance metrics are included in the appendices of each project agreement, as we discussed. Each program is expected to adhere to the project listed in the application, or in the agreement rather, work toward meeting their performance metrics, and spend down according to the approved budget. Requests for reimbursement that do not align with the approved budget may be denied. If your project needs to change during the year, please reach out to me. Likely, we will just need to document the changes. If these are not major changes, We don't necessarily need to go through an entire scope change because that will actually trigger changing the SIP, or the 6-year improvement plan, through which you were awarded. So the big point here is that any changes to your budget will always be within the award parameters. So you'll never be able to change anything to give any amount of money above what you received in your award. Spending may move between line items or be reduced, but a budget change will not increase the award amount. But anytime you have a budget change, please just reach out to me so we can discuss it, and so I know what to expect with your reimbursement requests, or we can talk about whether that's allowable. We will document those changes and I will keep them on file. We do have a form for scope changes, and I want to kind of point out that a scope change is really if you're requesting to do something outside of what you applied for and were awarded. So like activities for something that you weren't awarded for. That would trigger a very different process. So I just want to kind of differentiate that, as I know, I've had some questions about that recently. But yeah, we can, again, feel free to reach out to me if you need to discuss that for your project. Project extensions. All operating capital, contracting, and mobility management projects are awarded for one federal fiscal year, October 1st through September 30th. Project extensions are not common. If you think you need an extension, please email me first to discuss it prior to submitting a request in Olga. If you do need an extension, you will be able to submit that request in Olga, but you really need to just reach out to me and let me know what's going on, why you're submitting that request, just to make sure that you're not just submitting something in Olga and I'm rejecting it and there's no back and forth. Project closeout. For operating and other capital grants, there is no formal closeout process. You'll want to be sure that your final reimbursement request is marked as such in Olga. There's an option to mark it when you submit it. Include your final completed performance metric spreadsheet with that final reimbursement request. If your project remains open with a balance after that last reimbursement request, so if you did not spend down your entire project, you'll want to deobligate the balance once that request is submitted. And that is something you can also do in Olga. That sometimes we'll reach out to ask you to deobligate if we see something just kind of sitting in there, but that should be part of your sort of wrapping up of your final reimbursement request, is to look to see if there's a balance and deobligate it. Planning for the next grant cycle. So if you're planning to apply for the FY25, you'll want to reflect on your actual FY23 through 24 spending. If you spent less than awarded, consider reducing your request for 24. If you needed more, then increase your budget request to align with your needs. We really want this to be realistic, and we want you to ask for what you need, but it needs to reflect the reality of your operations. When planning your FY25 performance metrics, again, look back on what you did that previous year. If some of the goals you set in those performance metrics were too lofty, reduce them for the next year, but continue to aspire to higher goals. So, if you thought you would provide 1,000 rides, but provided 500, perhaps set the next year's goal to 600. Again, it should be realistic, but, aspiring to what's reasonable for your program within that year. And ensure that any performance-based goals based on staff are, support the need for that position. So I just want to point out that with these performance metrics, we're not trying to punish you based on you not meeting a goal. It's really meant to just reflect the reality of your operations, and when you apply for the next year, to use that as a reference to say, okay, maybe we didn't meet our goals and it's more realistic for us to lower that number. So we really do want you to be realistic with those. Okay, that's pretty much the end of the presentation, but I want to again, leave room for any questions. Okay. I know I'm tired. You're probably all tired too. And I want to say thank you. Oh, there we go. Susan, can you confirm due dates for metric reporting and reimbursement request? So there's no exact due date for your reimbursement request. I just ask it's every month. Some people, you just do it based on your, your financial systems. It could be the end of the month. It could be the middle of the month. I receive them different times. The metric reporting, so if you're talking about metrics reporting through Olga, that's also, well, that is due by the end of the month. I know in the past it's been the 20th of each month, but I'm not giving that a specific date anymore, just because we want you to be able to capture that full month. Yeah, okay, and then the quarterly report is quarterly. Cool, thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, if there's no other questions, I just want to say, oh, there we go, Susan. And it's okay to submit both together. Yes, yes. Thank you all. If anyone's welcome to sign off now, but I appreciate all of you attending, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. And we will send out this recording and these materials. Deborah, do we need to submit the timesheets for part-time mobility manager positions? Yes, I would say yes, you should submit timesheets or some indication of hours for part-time. This is with the monthly reports. Are you talking about reimbursement requests? Or sorry, oh my gosh, sorry. You're talking about the ridership? If you're talking about submitting timesheets with the monthly ridership report in Olga, no, you do not have to include any attachments with that. Did that make sense? Okay, I'm going to end the recording.